There are two main ways to physically interact with today's smartphones. The first, and most intuitive, I think, is through the exterior buttons on the sides of the phone. Typically, on the right side, you'll have a small power button that looks like this, that when you press, will turn the display of the phone on or off. And if you press and hold, will allow you to turn the phone itself on or off, respectively. Above the power button, you have a longer volume button that if you press the bottom part of, will decrease the volume, and if you press the top part, it will increase the volume. And you can see that here. If I press the bottom part, it's decreasing the volume, which you can see through that bar, and if I press the top, it increases it. Now, the second main way to interact is through touches. Today's smartphones have capacitive touchscreen displays, and there'll be an electrostatic field that the phone is capable of recognizing slight disruptions to at specific positions. And that's how it interprets a touch, is a disruption to that electric field at a specific position. Now, the reason for that detail is so you can get an intuitive grasp and understanding for why sometimes the phone might not be registering your touch correctly. If, for example, you had gloves or were trying to tap it with the tip of your fingernail, that is likely not going to disrupt the electric field as effectively as your fingertip, and it won't register that touch, even though you are physically touching the screen. Additionally, things like liquid on the screen will disrupt that electric field and will cause it to not function properly. Also, it means that typically, if the phone is not registering your touch in the position that you expect it to, or it's not registering it at all, it's probably because you're touching the screen too hard. A very, very slight touch is all you need for the phone to recognize that you've touched it, because you're just disrupting that electric field. You're not trying to push anything down or squeeze it. And typically, the harder you push, the more of your finger that's going to come in contact with the screen, and thus the harder it is for it to determine exactly where you wanted to touch. Additionally, it might even think that you're trying to slide your finger across the screen the harder you push down. So I recommend, if it's not working properly, touch the screen less hard rather than harder. I know that's kind of against the intuitive thing that everything in life typically is. If a button isn't working or a knob isn't working, your instinct is to push harder. But with the smartphone, typically you're going to want to be doing the opposite. Now, let's get to some of the actual touches. There's going to be three main touch interaction types that I'll talk about. The first is a swipe. Now you might have seen at the bottom here, it says swipe to open in white. And when I turn the display on, it shows my lock screen. If I want to actually access the phone, make a call, take pictures, activate an app, I'll have to do that swipe to open the phone. Now, this swipe action is simply touching the phone, sliding your finger across it, and then releasing. And it can be performed in any direction. So I could have an upward swipe, I could have a side swipe, or even a downward swipe. And they will all unlock the phone. I like to think of swipes as things dedicated to movement, whether you're moving to a different screen, a different part of your display, or even navigating through an app. These swipes, now you can see I'm doing up and down swipes to navigate through this screen. These swipes are all movement based. They're all moving me somewhere else in the phone or moving the information around. As I side swipe here, I can see the different times and temperatures. Now, the second main touch is, well, just a touch. It's simply tapping the screen at a specific spot very lightly and quickly. I just tap down and release, and it'll do things such as open apps or enter numbers. I could start dialing a number with just little taps, and will be most of your interactions is just tapping. Confirms any sort of action that you want to do. And I would be careful when you do these taps, they're going to be very light. You're just tapping a spot on the screen. And if you However, if I pressed and dragged a little bit, or I pushed really hard, my finger can actually move a little and I don't get that 1 that I expected, because the phone interpreted my action as a swipe instead of as a simple tap or touch. Now, finally, the third main one is a long touch, where I press in a specific spot and I hold it down for a little bit longer. Instead of like the quick tap, I do a slight little press and hold, then I release. This is used sort of as a right click for a mouse on a computer. It's used to open up additional settings. I can do things like remove this or go into additional settings for my weather app. Or if I long touch on the phone, I can check missed calls, create a contact. I can do additional things for phones. Or the camera, if I long touch on that, I can do additional camera functionality. Now you'll probably notice there, it actually didn't open it right away the first time I tried. And that's because I already had something else open. So it didn't interpret that right away, even though I was doing a long touch. If that ever happens, don't just keep holding, just lift up your finger and try again. And then typically it'll work. And that handles the 3 main interactions. The swipes are for navigating or moving around. The touches are for activating things, typing in numbers, typing a text or a message. And the long touch is for any kind of additional settings. Finally, as a quick little bonus, if you do an extra long touch, there we go, you can see it opened up a slightly different display here. And this allows me to move things around. So I could move my little weather display down here with my long touch. So if I do my long touch again, you notice that slight change. I have the dots. I can now move this around. So, and I'll go over some more ways you can navigate and use the phone next time.